So I'm here with my buddy Dan, and today we're looking at UPA with a few different positional corrections to add more connection to the hip, which is usually how people counter. Okay, so looking at UPA today, but we're going to look at how to improve the angle based on what we've all seen from Rickson Gracie by turning the neck. But we're also going to look at a more efficient method to control your opponent's hips so they don't counter by rotating the opposite direction. So standard UPA, from a jiu-jitsu perspective, I'm just going to reach for a hand and collar. He's going to grab my wrist, he's going to grab my elbow, and he's going to tip to roll over as normal. Good. So a problem that most people have, if you haven't seen Rickson Gracie's method, is that when they begin to buck with their hips, they don't turn their head. So he can only buck me as far as his head is straight. And then what happens is they try to convert sideways. So let's go walk through that. He's straight, then he turns over. He doesn't have much leverage. He doesn't have the correct angle. So try that again. Hook my leg. Keep your head straight, as most people continue to do. And I can easily defend. So again, all credit to Rickson Gracie. If he turns his head by putting his ear on his shoulder, and then he looks over his shoulder, now he has the entire portion of his shoulder to roll me over instead of the side of his arm. So as I have a collar, he bucks and rolls. No opportunity for me to defend that. We're going to do the same thing. I'm going to allow him to capture the arm, and he's going to turn his head and still do the UPA, but I'm going to add a little bit of hip change to see if I can prevent the roll. Hand and collar. Go back again. So hand and collar. He's collapsing, he's grabbing my foot, he's turning his head. Everything seems right. My hips, we're going to do that one more time and watch my hips. I think it's slower. No, you're good. So my hips, as he starts to rotate, I'll pause you. As he starts to rotate, head's right. He has my foot trapped, I can't bring it out. But notice my hips, let's back up. Here are my hips, they're stable. Go ahead and start. Yep, one more time. My hips are still facing the ceiling. So if my hips are facing the ceiling and he's trying to roll me over, ideally my hips should end up turning sideways. Right, this would make my posture completely off. Let me get on bottom here. So just recapping. Most people make the mistake with UPA. They'll grab the hand, they'll grab the elbow, they'll trap a foot, and they try to bridge. That's as far as I can go, and then they try to turn, and if he literally just posts his arm over here, that's going to stop. Of course, you're going all technical and everything. Don't worry about your hip at the moment. Just block me with your arm. So again, I'm sure 90% of the jiu-jitsu population has seen Rickson Gracie's example of this, but it's good detail with the neck. So he's going to block with his arm only, not going to fight. He's just going to offer a little bit of resistance, and I'm going to do it incorrectly by not turning my head. That's as far as I can go. So if I properly tilt my head without him fighting or trying to escape in any other method, he can still post with his hand, but we'll see if I can get more leverage, more of an angle by rolling over my shoulder instead of the side of my arm. So I still trap his leg, I have a hand, I have an elbow, turn my head and roll over my shoulder, go ahead and post. I can continue a lot further with my roll. But there's another issue that many people encounter, and it all has to do with his hips. If I trap his foot, there's a difference between just making contact and having connection. So if I just trap his foot, even though I turn and everything's right, if I start to go, right there he was able to go to technical mount. He starts popping up to technical mount. The issue is not that he can bring his knee up. The issue is that his hips are facing the ceiling, he's flat. If I want to roll him over, his hips need to rotate this direction. If his hips stay flat, or even worse, rotate the other direction, he's going to counter my leverage. So how do we prevent that? So he has a hand and collar. I need to move, make sure I can trap a foot. Even if I do everything right, and he shifts his hips just slightly, I still can't rotate enough. He has too much movement. So it's not enough to just trap the foot by touching it. I want to begin a connection before I start the upa. So I'm touching his foot, I'm touching his arm, but I'm simply going to rotate my body. He's on top of me, but he has no control of my movement if I want to turn completely sideways. He has to follow. Okay? So if I'm trapping his foot, and I have control of a wrist and an elbow, watch his hips without me even doing upa. I'm just rotating. Can you sit back down? No. I haven't started the upa yet. I just trapped his foot, and now I'm rotating my body because I can. Just try to stay calm here. Elbow and wrist, trap the foot, but it's not just trapping the foot. Trap the foot and make a deep connection. So I'm rotating my body. I'm almost steamrolling over his ankle. I'm not doing the upa yet. I'm just rotating. Now look at his hips. His hips are already starting to go. And if I decide to do the upa now, there's literally minimum effort. Okay, so walking through the basics again. I'm low on his hips. If I'm high, upa is going to be very difficult. He has to either crab walk back or do some framing, right? A lot of people feel that they don't have the flexibility, they call it flexibility, to try to block the foot. He's barely touching my foot now. And obviously that's because I'm a little too high. He should brace and walk down a little further. Now he can touch it. Let's try it back up a little bit. So what most people don't realize is the movement that they actually have from the bottom. If he again tries to block my foot, it may not be that he needs to drive himself that way. He can literally turn himself to the side. So he's turned himself underneath me, and now he has much better ability to trap my foot just by turning his body. So it's not necessarily a fight to, crab walk backwards. He can literally change his position by tilting sideways. So I'm still facing forward, and he's turned his body below. I can't control that. I can follow him, but he still has a lot of movement capability. So we're going to look at that. We'll put it all together. I'm going for a choke. He grabs the wrist. He controls the elbow. He's going to block my foot, but he's also going to start turning his body. And now I can already feel off balance. I can feel that as he turns his hip, is dragging my hip over. So I have to try to counter it. But when he puts it together with the upa as he drags, I literally have very limited ability to stop that. Let's try that again. So I'm not in a technical mount at the moment. If he starts going for an upa, I could switch to a technical mount. I could switch. Of course, this gives him a knee and elbow escape. Right, there's a counter to about everything. But he's just going to be calm. He doesn't want me to get both hands in collar. He doesn't want me to get an Ezekiel. But he's tilting his body right now. And I can feel, my foot is actually stuck. So we say trap the foot. And many times people will block it, but they're not really trapping it. And there's a big difference because it has to do with connection. When he's connected and starts putting pressure on his trapped ankle, it pulls my entire hip hips to the direction he wants to go. It makes the upa so much easier. So straight on, hand and collar, grab the wrist, grab the elbow, shift the body, and now start the upa. I'm already going. Good. Let me try one on you. Hand and collar, simple to block. He's given me this, he's taken away his post, that's step number one. Block the foot, but don't just block the foot. Tilt my body, trap the foot, turn my head. And the upa can be as slow as Christmas, but still effective. So try that, just do it all in one flow. So all together. One more time. So again, we're not looking at upa as a linear technique where we just tilt the head as we see, Rickson Gracie demonstrate. It's not necessarily linear. It's more of a circle, which adds to the connection to the hips. So again, he's going to buck his hips, he's going to turn his head, he's going to trap my arm correctly, but he's also twisting his body sideways, creating more of a circular upa rather than linear. Let me do that one more on you. Upa can be done straight on with proper technique. But he can also counter with his hips. Even though I trapped his foot, he had to struggle to get out. So I'm going to trap his foot, rotate my body to create a constant connection to his hip through his ankle, but still do the upa in the correct fashion. And so go ahead and offer some resistance on this one. So he's really going to try to choke. He doesn't want to get upa'd. I don't care if he gets the other hand and collar because I'm blocking this one deep. But I'm going to rotate my hips and do the upa to make a strong connection so he can't just base out and go to technical mount. Do that to me. So a lot of people miss this aspect. You watch a video, you do training, and with a good partner, upa seems easy, but you think that'll never work against an upper belt, that'll never work, once you're past blue, and that's not true. You just have to learn how to connect the hips. Thanks for taking a look at upa and connection through the hip joint to prevent the scramble. That's not going to work either, but I'll do it.